Really excited because today Tim is going to spend some time with us and sharing some of the silver that you can be buying at a really, really deeper discount price than what you typically would get. Coming right up. All right, so Tim, we are here at your shop, Puro's Coins and Jewelry, and in Rutland, Vermont, for any of you that happen to be in the area. And what we wanted to talk about today is essentially, what were you saying? Like wartime nickels, 40% silver, what were you?
Well, there's just some ways that there's some forms of silver that you can buy where you're going to get the most silver for your dollar.
Okay.
They may not be the most exciting. They may not necessarily be as liquid as some other things, but for each dollar, you're going to get more silver for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so in particular, I see right there in the front, what do you have there? Some war nickels.
Yes.
And so people that don't know, can you tell them a little bit about what war nickels are?
Yeah, so from 1942 to 45, and actually some in 42 were not silver and some are. The government needed the nickel for the war effort.
Okay.
So instead of using nickel for the nickels, they made that they're made out of 35% of silver.
Okay.
35% silver. So I think wartime nickels and the clad $50 they get
Made fun of.
Yeah. They
I'm guilty
do.
as charged. I told you. I make fun of. I make fun of
They
them. But
do, but you know, like wartime nickels. Let me see. I think I wrote it down here.
aren't they like 35% silver?
They're 35% silver, and I can. The wholesalers are buying them for 20% less than spot.
Okay.
So that's means retail. It's probably you can get them close to spot. I would think.
That makes sense.
So I think that's a great way. I also like it because they're kind of smaller denominations. So you know, if silver hits $100 an ounce and you want to sell $10 worth,
Yeah.
you just grab a couple.
Grab
of
some
them.
of those.
Yep.
So I know that a lot of people, they are right now a little bit more, you know, unsure, uncertain as to what they should be doing when it comes to buying both silver and gold, because as you know, gold continues to hit all-time highs. And, you know, silver, while it's kind of lagging behind, a lot of people expect that silver is going to have like a breakout moment.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, you know, while I don't stack, you know, war nickels or constitutional silver for that matter, you know, I do think that you are absolutely right in that, you know, it does provide people a lower price point in which they can accumulate more silver, get more bang for their buck.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So when somebody comes into your shop, and they're like, "Hey Tim, you know, I'm looking to buy silver. I have, you know, $500 or $1,000. You know, what would you suggest to them to buy if it's like their first time buying?"
Yeah. Well, I'm always a fan of 90%.
Okay. Any in particular? Any type of 90%?
Well, I mean, if you can get uncirculated or close to uncirculated, so quite often you can pick through my $50 and they'll be AU and almost UNC. And
Right.
so you're not going to have any, you know, loss from wear or anything like that from those.
Yeah, so if you could explain that a little bit more too, again, for newer people, when Tim is talking about UNC, he's not talking about his uncle, he's talking about uncirculated.
Uncirculated, yeah.
BU is brilliant uncirculated, AU is, what is that, almost uncirculated?
Yeah.
Right, but what's important for people to take away from the wear, the point that you're making, is that essentially there's more silver content on those UNC coins, on the BUs, as opposed to the ones that are slick.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't think it's fairly marginal. But if you, one thing I'm wondering, and we may have talked about this before, is, you know, right now 90% silver it's bought by the dollar.
Yeah.
So you pay a certain amount of for 4 quarters, 10 dimes, 2 half dollars. I'm wondering if once silver goes crazy, like a lot of people think it's going to, if it's eventually going to be bought by the weight.
Okay.
The dealers are going to be like, they're not going to want to have this, slick coins mixed in with other coins.
Right.
So that's why, if you can get it, I would go for either half dollars, and actually the Roosevelt dimes are probably pretty good too.
Yeah. I did a video one time just comparing, I think it was like $5 face, of Roosevelt dimes versus Mercury's, and the weight was off by 3 grams, 5 grams, something like that. There was a significant difference there.
Yeah.
So to your point, people coming in, getting the newer, the newer 90% coins, like anything from like the 1960s, preferably,
Usually,
right? So like the Kennedy halves. I see a lot of people though, they get crazy over Benjis.
Well, you know what? I personally think it's not the most attractive coin in the world.
Why? Because of the haircut?
Yeah, it's just not. It's just not. There's nothing wrong with Franklin's, especially the later date ones. There's a couple rare dates within Franklin's, but not a heck of a lot of them. So,
do you now, in addition to when you tell people go for the 90% silver, do you think that people should also be stacking, pure silver bars, 3 9s or 4 9 5, like 10 ounce bars, or do you think that doesn't matter? All right, so we had to momentarily pause recording because Tim got some customers in, but what I did want to ask you,
who were Stormy fans? By
it
the
turned
way.
out, they came in. They said, "Oh, we've seen your channel." I was surprised by that.
Autographs and selfies and everything.
It was. They had a whole production crew come here and take pictures. It's going to be in the local paper.
Yeah.
But I was asking you, aside from the 90%, do you tell people to buy, 10 ounce bars? Like, is that advantageous for people, or do you still think like 90% is the best way to go for bang for the buck?
For me, the smallest size, if it's the same price, is better.
Okay.
I think. So,
I would agree with that.
And I know it can be cumbersome. 100. If you got a bunch of 100-ounce bars, it's definitely much easier to store those than it is a bunch of dimes.
Yeah. I like that you said too, as long as it's the same price, because when you first started giving your answer, some people would say, "Oh, of course he's going to say buy the fractional. There's more premium." But like you're saying, like if you have the option of one or the other at the same cost, then it makes a ton of sense to buy the fractional. Let me ask you this. I'm going to put you on the spot. Are you one of those individuals? No judgment from me, but are you one of the are you one of the individuals that subscribes to, like, the SHTF scenario, like you're going to want to have your fractional silver in case of like a doomsday apocalyptic scenario? Or do you not see that as like a likely event? Because you see it a lot in the stacking community.
It's something I pray doesn't ever happen.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to, but if it ever did, at
least you have
least you have it, and why not have it in the most liquid, the smallest form that you can.
Yeah.
So I pray it's not going to happen.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of dealers who push that kind of fear tactic to try to push people into buying particular products.
Yeah.
What have you been seeing the most activity when it comes to your sales? People coming in, like you just had a couple customers come in, they bought some items off of you. What have you been selling the most of?
I sell a lot of 90% because
that's your thing.
Yeah, that's what I believe in. And we had talked about it. There's low mintage rounds where you can get significant premiums. That I worry that when it comes time for people to sell them, they're not going to get those premiums back.
Right.
So that's why I like 90 and American Eagles and Maple Leafs and things like that. So, yeah.
The thing too, I think a takeaway that people should have, like I'm in a little bit of a different situation where, I deal with a lot of collectibles and stuff. And so I typically get a good return on those items, but that's because I've found the audience that buys it, and that's what I buy and
Yeah,
sell.
yeah.
But for the everyday person, you know, because I have a social media platform, but the everyday person, they're not going to be selling on YouTube. They're not going to be selling on Instagram. They're going to be
Right.
going to their local dealer and just buying and selling with them. So it makes sense that what you're saying is stick with like the stuff that's
Yeah, I mean, I have nothing against getting a premium for, you know, those
right,
rounds.
right.
You know, people collect them, you know, Star Wars stuff or
Yeah.
the Transformers like the other guy. So I have no problem with that. But if you're doing it just to invest in silver and put in the back of your safe, I think trying to get the most for the least amount is the best way to go.
Now let me ask you about gold. When you have the gold in stock, because I know you sell through it fairly quickly, what is the advice you give people in terms of what they should buy? Because I'll tell you what my thoughts are after I hear from you, but my thoughts are changing on one coin in particular. But what do you typically tell people when they come in? They're like, I need some gold. Can I buy some? Or what should I get? What do you typically say?
I say, you know, if you want American Eagles, you're going to pay maybe a $20 an ounce more than if you were to buy Krugerrands. Some people prefer the Eagle, but you know, again, I would probably go with Krugerrands or you know whatever's the least expensive at that time. You know, there's been times where Canadian Maple Leafs have been more expensive than Eagles. You know, so. That's the way I go.
So that's actually what I was going to say is I always kind of look down on the Krugerrands. I always just because I always felt that they were like an uglier coin. No offense to some of the South African viewers here. I saw some comments that you guys got upset, but you know, because I forget what the consistency. I know they're not pure gold, right? Like an eagle, they're made up of copper as well. I forget.
There may be some copper in there, but
very
there's still an
orange.
ounce of gold
Right,
in it. Yeah.
right. Well, I was looking today. One person was asking me, "What's the cheapest gold that I can buy?" And I was looking at the wholesale sheet, and Krugerrands are very, very inexpensive. So I'm gonna probably start pushing that to my, you know, my buyers. Like this is right now because gold is at all-time highs. This is kind of the way to go.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the stuff like, you know, the French roosters, you know, the 20 francs
Yeah,
or all that stuff?
That's a great way to go about it.
Sovereigns too?
Yeah, all that stuff is. Yeah, quite often you can get that for the premium is less on those than Krugerrands and all that stuff.
Right.
You know, when I wholesale them, I usually get I think 98% or something like that.
Yeah.
So and that's not the case with Krugerrands and Maple Leafs and Eagles. You know, you're usually going to get spot or a little bit more for them.
Now, do you ever deal with Mexican gold ever or not as much?
Yeah, yep. Is it the 50 peso or the 20 peso? The
That
one
has the calendar on the back, like the
yeah,
sundial?
1.2 ounces at 50 pesos.
The 50 pesos is the 1.2 and
Yeah.
change. That's like, it has like the angel on the front, and that's like the heavier coin.
Yeah, that's a beautiful coin.
Yes, it is. I have one in my stack. And then I also have a 20 pesos, which is about a half. I think it's like 0.48,
Yeah.
I think. But it's got like either the Mayan or I think it's the Mayan calendar on the one side. But what's been a really big seller for me has been the dos pesos, which are itty bitty. I mean, they're like the
Right.
size of like your pinky tip.
Yep.
And I'm thinking like when you do the math, the amount of those, like when you add up, I forget how many to equal an ounce, it's an astronomical premium.
Right.
But I think that people are buying them because
They can afford them.
they can afford them.
Yeah. Yep. Well, as an example, and I'm not. I think this is the first time it's ever come in, but I bought some silver shots.
Oh yeah. Are you going to be doing some pours?
It just came in the shop over the counter, so I put them on eBay for I think $1.40 a gram, which
Yeah.
is significantly over spot. But it's labor intensive for me to pack them and ship them and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But these are pretty cool. You can come up with any amount of grams that you need.
Right.
You know, so
It's popular for the silver pourers.
yeah.
I would sell vials, like little glass bottles, and I would fill them in, I think it was like 12, 14 ounces. I would sell them. And I've seen people do some really cool stuff, though. So for like silver shot, I've seen some people actually take like syringes and put the silver shot in it, and they call it a silver shot. They put their sticker on the syringe.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's a cool marketing idea, I think.
Yeah.
So you're all for the 90%. I'm not surprised that you love that stuff based on our previous conversations. Essentially, guys, I mean, I guess what you're saying is whatever you could get at the cheaper price is what people should kind of be focused on.
Yeah. So these are where some silver eagles that were in a fire.
Okay.
So
I was like, why are they all white?
Yeah, and the ones that are all silver eagles that people have painted on and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those are worth less than regular silver eagles too. So,
yep. The stuff that has the stickers on it. I'm surprised these were in a fire and they don't look as bad as I would have thought that a coin would look
right
in a fire.
Yes.
Have you ever tried to like dip these at all and like easiest to see like if it would even kind of you can see that they're like kind of chalky in color.
Yeah, I don't think much more would come off. I think that's just going to be the appearance of them.
Just cull.
Yeah. So I sell these for the same price as a round.
Okay.
So,
makes sense.
And now, what about the dollar commemorative coins from the mint?
Are these 90%?
Those are 90%.
Yep.
I believe there's the same amount of silver in them as in a Morgan dollar.
I believe, are these the ones that would come with a 1/4 ounce gold coin with them?
They
do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
the sets?
you can buy them individually. You can buy them in here.
Yeah, they come in usually like a box with like a 1/4 ounce gold. I think it's like a quill. I think it's like a picture of a quill with like the Constitution on it or something.
You can also buy them in like prestige sets.
Oh,
too.
okay. How do these typically do for? This is more for like a collector, not so much for like
it is
stackers.
Yeah, most of those trade fairly close to silver in terms of the prestige sets.
Sure.
But there are some that are rare dates. I think a 96 and 97 might be rare dates
Now,
that are worth more.
Now, people watching this video, what if they wanted to get in touch with you? What's the best way for them to get in touch with you? Your website or
my website or email is always good. You know, my website is vtcoins with an s.com, kind of, you know, Vermont coins.
Yeah.
And my email is Puro, my last name Puro at vtcoins.com.
And I'll put all of the information in the description too. If you guys want to get in touch with Tim, I mean, he's been now doing these videos with me for, I want to say, 3 years, more or less.
At least, yeah.
Yeah. So always a pleasure. I have other things that I want to ask you about for the next video, which we're going to record. But again, just appreciate the time, bud.
No problem.
All right.
Good to see you, man.
You too.